If you grew up during the early 2010s with Premiere Cable, you may remember watching a channel called The Hub. It was basically Discovery's kid channel like Warner Bros.' Cartoon Network, WOW, or Paramount's Nickelodeon, while also being Hasbro's channel at the same time. Now here's an important question. Whatever happened to The Hub? Well, in this video, I will be uncovering the rise and fall of The Hub and where it's at now, so strap in because this is gonna be a long video. Before we get into the Hub era for this channel, we'll have to look back at the era that took place before the Hub era.
Now back to Discovery Kids Story Studio.
On October 7th, 1996, Discovery launched their own kids channel called Discovery Kids. The name is still kept in foreign countries, by the way, for ages 6 and 11. As Senior VP Marjorie Kaplan explained, this was because many kids would watch the parent channel Discovery with their parents, so of course they had to open up a channel for kids because of that. The channel at the time featured shows like Kitty Cats, Elvis, The Happy Professor, and Salty's Lighthouse. The branding for this era was okay. It wasn't as great as The Hub's or as bad as Discovery Families, it was just okay. They had a mascot in their bumpers called Chomp who would, well, violently chomp the logo with other chompers sometimes. Chomp was introduced when Discovery Kids was on NBC, and speaking about that, in December 2001, Discovery announced a partnership with NBC to air Discovery Kids as a Saturday morning block called Discovery Kids on NBC. This led to Discovery Kids branching out into airing animated shows for preschool and older kids, like Peep in the Big Wide World, Tuntenstein, and Kenny the Sulk. In March 2006, Discovery renewed its contract with NBC, and the block was later replaced with the creation of Cubo. Yup, this renewed contract was the reason for Cubo's existence in the first place. It later became a network which years later would shut down on February 28, 2021. Back to Discovery Kids, that's all I could say about this era. The only thing left for me to say is that The Future is Wild, the TV series, not the documentary, aired during this era, and I like myself some speculative evolution, so that's cool. Anyways, it's time to talk about the deal that changed everything about this network. On April 30th, 2009, Hasbro announced that they would be joining Discovery to relaunch Discovery Kids as a new family-oriented channel, with both of them having 50% ownership of the network for $300 million. This meant that the new channel would have both Hasbro content and Discovery content airing on it. The new name for this channel was revealed in January 2010 as The Hub. 2 months later, the release date for when The Hub would launch was announced to be on 10/10/10, October 10th, 2010, the ultimate 10-day. Before October 10th, 2010, there were bumpers that started to play about how Discovery Kids was going to become The Hub. Fast forwarding to that date, a countdown was displayed for when Discovery Kids would become The Hub. When the countdown hit 2 seconds while a marathon of Kenny the Sulk finished airing, the screen faded to black and viewers were greeted with this. This was a new era for this network, and it was going to be great just from watching this introduction. At launch, the channel had shows like My Little Pony, Friendship is Magic, which became important for the channel, Transformers Prime, Pound Puppies, Family Game Night, The Twisted Whiskers Show, Strawberry Shortcake, and later The Haunting Hour. It also acquired shows to air as reruns like Dennis and NASA, Meerkat Manor, Atomic Betty, Del Toro Quest, and Batman Beyond. As for preschool shows, they had Animal Mechanics, In the Night Garden, Why Not Teletubbies, The Woodward's, and The Adventures of Chuck and Friends. They aired in the preschool programming block called Hubbub, which strangely enough disappeared at some point during the Hub's lifespan, but not the preschool shows. The targeted audience for this era was ages 2 and 12, a market that staff felt was being abandoned by its competitors in favor of ages 9 and 12, and the branding for this era was focused on being vibrant and diverse while having SpongeBob-like shows. This is because former CEO Margaret Lois wanted this instead of making it look like a Disney Channel clone. And let me just say that she was the key to the hub's success. She's pretty much the reason why we got many great bumpers that feature the logo being playful and crossovers with other shows like Megatron being revealed as a brony.
Play my favorite song.
My little pony, my little pony.
Good stuff.
I used to wonder.
Or Pinkie Pie messing with Dan from Dan Vs.
My car! Bedazzled. Pinkie Pie!
You're welcome.
In fact, Dan Vs. airing with shows like My Little Pony, Transformers, and Strawberry Shortcake on the same channel is insane to think about. It's basically an oddball to this channel, which it is because it was initially pitched to Adult Swim. At least this underrated show is free to watch now on YouTube after it stopped airing on the Hub years ago. Overall, the Hub had a very good start despite being only available in premium cable packages. As I said in the beginning, now that I think of it, I'm surprised my parents paid for cable this much before streaming so we could have the Hub. Also, here's an important question. What was responsible for the Hub's high viewership during its beginning? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? My Little Pony. Yeah, that show attracted a lot of viewers on the channel thanks to the brony craze of the early 2010s, even though MLP was more accessible on YouTube and Netflix, but they still tuned in on the Hub every time it was airing. This is also why I said it became important for the channel. Unfortunately, this left shows like Dan Vs. to be ignored since MLP was now the main focus of the channel. It's almost like the SpongeBob effect if I do say so myself. In fact, speaking of Dan Vs., during the Hub's 4-year lifespan, the most notable shows that were added and acquired were Dan Vs., Littlest Pet Shop, Care Bears, The Aquabats Super Show, Animaniacs, Gem and the Holograms, Goosebumps, and Shizao. Yes, it's that one cartoon about a boy who must be a girl to become a superhero. Anyways, the Hub would have programming blocks such as Hub Primetime, which aired shows like Alf aimed at families and adults, Hub Boom, which aired action shows like Batman and G.I. Joe, Haunted Hub, which aired horror shows for kids like Goosebumps and The Haunting Hours, and Hub Family Movie, which obviously aired movies like Garfield the Movie. Yeah, you can already tell how much Margaret Lois wanted this channel to be vibrant and diverse, while also making sure it wasn't just a toy commercial network. The branding would range from billboards, concept art, and being on Transformers ice cream. Yup, the marketing team really wanted to make the branding as great as possible. Also, at some point the channel got renamed to Hub Network, but that's it. I'll still call it the Hub since it's easier to say than Hub Network. Overall, it looks like the channel was going to have a bright future, with viewership gradually increasing from 56,000 in May 2013 of each day to 80,000 at one point. Yeah, I should have mentioned that the Hub's viewership was very low compared to Nick or Disney Channel, which both averaged 1 million viewers each day, but it still looks like it was going to have a bright future. Oh. On June 12, 2014, it was announced that Margaret Lois's contract with the Hub would expire by the end of the year. As I said before, she was the key to the Hub's success, so this was bad news. Then on September 17th, it was announced that Discovery would acquire a controlling stake in the Hub from Hasbro and rename it as Discovery Family. Discovery and Hasbro also acknowledged that increasing competition in kids' media, especially by streaming services such as Netflix, was affecting the Hub's overall performance and Hasbro's original content. It didn't help with the fact that other major toy companies such as Mattel didn't want to advertise on the Hub since it was owned by Hasbro. By 2014, the Hub only made $9 million per year, and for comparison, Nickelodeon made $1 billion per year. 8 days later, Discovery and Hasbro announced the planned rebranding. in which Hasbro CEO Brian Gorner explained that Discovery Family would be the next chapter in Hasbro's collaboration with Discovery, with highly rated award-winning storytelling around Hasbro's brands and Discovery's most popular non-fiction shows that appeal to both children and families alike. Okay, if that's true, then why did Margaret Lowe step down and get replaced by Henry Solef? And why was Nikki Ree hired right before the rebrand? For context, Nikki Ree was previously an executive of Disney Channel. Also, was it a good idea for Transformers Robots in Disguise to move to Cartoon Network even after it was announced for the Hub? Wait, it is since Ian's more popular. Oh, never mind, I messed that up. But the actual reason Hasbro moved it there was because their president Stephen Davis described the Hub's lineup as traditionally skewed towards girls. I kinda get his point, especially since the most popular show there is MLP, but boy cartoons and girl cartoons can coexist together in one network, you know. Oh well, this rebrand was going to be bad, but anyways, Discovery would acquire 10% of Hasbro's stake and launch Discovery Family on October 13, 2014. This was the beginning of the end for this network. After the rebrand, advertisements and marketing for Discovery Family were almost non-existent. It doesn't help with the fact that the transition started out with just the Hub making Family Fun bumper playing for the final time, then cutting to an episode of My Little Pony airing with the new watermark, then cutting to commercials, and finally showing its introduction to the world. There wasn't even a countdown to when the Hub would become Discovery Family. Viewership started decreasing since from what I heard, the schedule changed and it was pretty bad, and promoting new episodes of those shows was almost non-existent. An example is My Little Pony's episodes from season 5 onward, which were barely promoted on the channel, and at one point, they even kept rerunning the same season 5 promo every time a new episode aired. For such an important show on the network, they barely promoted any new episodes from season 5 onward. That is just baffling. Despite this decrease in viewership, Hasbro still aired their new shows on the channel instead of airing them on other channels like Nick or Cartoon Network. Shows like Hanazuki, Full of Treasures, which was previously on YouTube with millions of views, fell victim to this and didn't get the recognition they deserved. At least it looks like they learned their lesson and now put their new shows on either Netflix, Cartoon Network, or Nickelodeon. I don't know if there's anything left to say about the current era for this network besides Pac-Man and the Ghostly Adventures, Cake Boss, My Little Pony, Pony Life, Doki, see, he made it to the USA, and Hannah and the Wild Woods being introduced in this era. The worst part about all this? Shows like Seasow got their production halted or cancelled because of the rebrand. It's such a sad fate for an underrated channel that animation fans ignored because of a pony show's crazy fanbase at the time, which was so popular that other shows got overshadowed as a result. Good night, sweet prince. Unless... As much as a disaster as the Warner Bros. Discovery merger was, it actually managed to bring in one big benefit for Discovery Family's future, and that benefit is Michael Halloween. For those who don't know already, during the Warner Bros. Discovery merger close, Halloween regained oversight of Cartoon Network after nearly 2 years, but also became president of Discovery Family, so now he oversees both channels. So far, Discovery Family was given a slight rebrand and is now airing reruns of Baby Looney Tunes and the Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, all under Halloween's influence on the network. Also, it's no longer Premiere, but I don't know if that's because of Halloween. This might not be enough to save Discovery Family, however, but it does show the future for this network, especially since Hasbro's contract will expire in 2 years. Yup. In 2 years, the network's biggest hit will stop airing, which is sad, but what did you expect after everything it went through? Anyways, back to what I was saying, some have theorized that Discovery Family could become Cartoon Network's own network in the future, which I could see happening, especially with CN losing hours to Adult Swim, and some have theorized that it could become a brand new network. Or maybe it'll shut down, which would make sense since barely anyone watches it nowadays. But overall, Discovery Family started out very bad, but currently, it looks like there's a future for it now that Michael Halloween is in charge of it. We'll just have to wait and see how things play out in a few years. And that was my video essay about the hub's history. In a nutshell, it started out as a kid's version of the Discovery Channel that was okay, then turned into a Hasbro channel that still had Discovery content, which is where they struck gold because of My Little Pony's popularity, and then went back to being a kid's version of the Discovery Channel but worse. Man, what a roller coaster for such a short-lived network. Now to end the video, I'm just gonna list some fun facts related to the network. Monkey Ball TV was the precursor website to the Hub, which hosted flash games, puzzles, commercials, and small tidbits of episodes from Hasbro properties, including other licenses like Marvel when Hasbro had the rights to them. The Discovery Kids website had Chomp as a cursor, Harriet the Spy, Morbid Manor, Kiss Hello Kitty, Mind Trap, and Center of the Universe were upcoming shows for the Hub, but for some reason, all of them never came to fruition, possibly because of the Discovery Family rebrand. Sometimes during Sulk Week, Kenny the Sulk airs on the network. And those are all the facts I know related to the network. Anyways, goodbye.